say hello in the chat if you're there. Oops. All right, I think we're now live.
Okay.
I learned something new, actually. I was messing around with StreamYard, and it gave me some new features to see. So are we ready? I don't think you've seen this, Francis, or even Richard has seen it before. So you ready? It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow, there you go. I hope that got everyone's juices going. A lot of anticipation for the start of the show today. So we don't have Richard with us today because he's sick, but for everyone else, welcome to alt.net, for it is February, that's right. And we have Francis with us today, who is a long-time member of Sydney alt.net, even though he's not in Sydney anymore. He used to come in person, then he went to Spain, then Amsterdam. Where else have you been joining alt.net from, Francis?
I've actually, I think London once, at least once from London as well. But yeah, I'm currently broadcasting from Amsterdam, as some of you may have guessed from the the channel introduction on Meetup.
So Francis has personally made us an international phenomenon by connecting in from all around the world, or at least all around Europe. So it is, Francis has spoken at the group before, but this is the first time from Amsterdam, at least.
Yeah. So I think everyone knows the reputation of Amsterdam, so I expect everything to go wrong today. But we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see Francis is not giving away much with his room there. You can't see much of Amsterdam in the background. So today we got the usual JetBrains licenses to give away, so listen closely and stay to the end, and I'll ask 2 questions. Francis has given me a hint for one of the questions, so I'll ask that one, but I'll make up one partway through, so I'll ask at the end, and that's good for any of the JetBrains products or a renewal of the JetBrains products if you already got one on the show previously and just want to have another year worth of support, etc., or a different product. So other than that, what other exciting things been happening? Any big news of late, Francis?
Well, as you can see, I actually joined Freshbooks about 5 months ago. And they've been a really great company to work for, and I'm really kind of enjoying myself. So I actually haven't enjoyed myself working, working for someone for a really long time. So I'm pretty happy at the moment.
That's pretty high praise, and it's snowing outside, right?
Yeah, it's sleeting, I suppose, but it's very cold outside. Like I almost froze to death going to the coffee shop that's like 30 meters away and back.
Not a problem I'm currently facing here. I need to turn on the fans and I think it's getting hot.
Yeah, I'm kind of envy you, but I'm sure there might be some people envying the much colder weather too.
So I think we have Richard in the chat room there, though not in person. So if you see a big heckle from Sydney alt.net, that's probably Richard in disguise there.
Yeah. I haven't actually got the
chat up.
Mainly because I think I'm going to get echo and audio issues, so I actually have to turn off
the right.
Yeah.
So as usual, feel free to put in any questions and comments and stuff, and I'll be your representative and surface it for Francis to answer. So don't hold back. Francis is a tough guy. He'll take whatever.
I'm expecting some deadly comments from the crowd today. Yeah.
I think we might have a few people from the days of physical alt.net there that remember Francis in human person as well. So yes, that should be good. More comments. All right. Well, I suppose we talked enough about other stuff, and we should get on to the big topic of the C4 diagrams and having fun with C4 diagrams. So Francis mentioned that he's read the book twice and is very ready to tell you all about it. So I'll bring up his slides. Let's see. And he's even practiced this presentation, so it should be really good.
Okay.
Here we go. I'll hand over to you now, Francis.
Awesome. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to come see my presentation. So hopefully tonight you'll go away, with a few laughs, but also more importantly, kind of seeing what C4 diagrams are about and see whether that can actually help your organization with maybe perhaps getting some better diagrams out there. So okay, so just a quick shameless self plug. So obviously I've joined Freshbooks as a principal engineer about 5 months ago. So as you may know me as the guy that loves to bring freebies that are non-JetBrains licenses. So I've managed to secure some free 3-month trial of our product if anyone's interested. And I'll basically let you know about that at the end of the presentation. So just a quick rundown of some of the things I'll be talking about today. So I'll jump into a quick intro into C4, and then we'll take a deep dive. I'll show you some tooling for C4, and then I'm going to try and do it. I was going to try and do an interactive demo with a crowd, but I don't know if you're going to get enough time to do that. So depending on how much time's left, I might just do a traditional demo rather than a live interactive session. But let's see how that one goes. Okay, so some of your skeptics out there might be wondering, why C4? So some of the comments that I heard when I publicized the fact that I was going to do a session on C4 diagrams. So some of the comments that said was comments like hey, we already have a well-proven way to do diagrams. Someone even said even a 4-year-old can understand my diagrams, which made me kind of think. And yeah, this is surprisingly also quite common. Is C4 will be useful to me, which is a bit surprising as well. So and that was my response back to them. So I guess I'm going to show you some diagrams and basically kind of show you. I'm going to get you guys to try and comment on what's wrong with some of the diagrams I'm about to show you. So okay, so I'm going to give you guys about 20 seconds. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with this particular diagram? James, if you can kind of
I'll surface any comments, or if no one comments, I'll come up with something. So Richard says it needs more boxes and lines. Oh, I think report spelled incorrectly.
Yep. Okay.
You got no actors coming in.
Yep, that's valid too. So just to
Loaves don't have many labels on it.
Yeah, that's a good one. So basically, I guess some of the things that came to my mind is did a 4-year-old actually draw this?
Lines are broken.
Yeah. I mean, I think broken.
Circle.
So the broken lines could be valid too.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, but there's different colored broken lines, for example, and I don't know what they all mean. And there's all these arrows going all over the place, but again, there's no labels. So I don't know what these arrows are exactly. And there's all these different colored arrows, for example. I'm sure they have a meaning as well. And this particular box, which I don't know what it is, there's a blue circle around it. What does that mean? And obviously, I don't know what this green circle is. I'm presuming.
That's the cache for everything. I've got PH74 told you that already.
Okay. Well, did you draw this? Because I don't know what
maybe they were in the meeting where it was all explained.
Okay.
And,
so basically, So basically, something like this, unless you're present in the room, I don't think anyone's gonna know what's going on in that particular diagram. So this next diagram is a bit better, but there are obviously still some flaws.
This is after AI has come and fixed it up for it. This is Andrew's comment. I'm just putting up here.
Yeah, that's very good. I don't know if AI can produce this type of pretty pictures just yet. Certainly not ChatGPT, I think.
You need DALL-E or whatever. Ask for a system diagram, please.
Okay. So obviously, it's obviously much better, but some of the things that kind of came to mind is there's all these action like diagrams, but I don't know what sort of action it's taking. It's way too generic, for example. And obviously there's all these errors going back, and I don't know what type of is this all the same error or different errors? It's too generic. Maybe this is not a criticism of the diagram itself, but it was also worrying to see that they have a huge error component that's standalone. That's collect. It's like, wow, how many errors are you generating that you need a separate error component for that? And I think so. So I think it's a little bit better, but like one of the things that also maybe not many of you might have thought about is, if I want to know what technology they're using, for example, it doesn't say here. I have to dig in through the documentation or code to find this out. Okay. So this is the last example. So I think this is a bit more comprehensive. This is, obviously has got more labels and stuff, but can anyone kind of point out what potential?
Richard knows what this one is. The next crystal report space, Australian census system.
Richard, do you know if they got a good deal? The Australian government got a good deal for crystal reports because
really?
It's freaking expensive. Okay, all right. So obviously, as I was mentioning before, this is a little bit more, complete. There's labels everywhere, but for example, I don't know what this is. For example, I mean, it kind of looks like a sperm kind of floating around. I don't know. It looks like a sperm to me. That was the first thing that came to my mind. For example.
I was thinking of bean sprout myself.
Is it? Okay. Okay. I've obviously got a dirty mind since I moved here.
We got a suggestion, tape drive. That must be it.
Wow, really? Tape? Okay. I used to have tape drives, but yeah. I think Richard wanted to say tape drive, right? I think that's what he wanted to say.
He didn't want to show his age, though. He didn't know.
And I don't know what this A plus B equals C. What does A plus B equals C? I mean, yeah. So this, obviously some things that are missing.
This one needs more colors anyway.
Yeah, that's potentially an issue too. But if you've noticed, all the three diagrams I've shown you before, none of them also have a title. So I don't really know what I'm looking at. Okay. So what's wrong with the previous diagrams? I guess these were the top three things that came to my mind. So obviously there's no consistent methodology. Everyone has their own methodology and they're just pushing it out to their users without any thought. There's obviously a lot of information and context that's missing. So I think, that was kind of obvious with all three diagrams that I've shown you. So I think maybe perhaps the authors have assumed that the audience would know everything about the system, but often that's not the case, and it's actually the opposite. And the third one, I think, is it's something that I notice, I guess, since I've been doing C4 diagrams, is like the intended audience could be much bigger as well. So obviously, if you think about system diagrams, they were made by developers, probably for developers. But these days, like I don't think too many developers just work just alongside developers as well. I certainly am doing a lot of work with, like a kind of cross team. So, I'm working with product, with business, etc., etc. So it's kind of a shame that they can't actually use some of the diagrams that we produce.
So we got a comment from PH74. So yeah, they're not in code and stuck in real life as well. Was added there.
Okay, what do you mean by they're stuck in? Yeah, can you just show me the question again?
Oh, sorry. I don't think it's kind of a question, but I think you correct me if I'm wrong, PH74, that they're on a whiteboard rather than like in some sort of online platform.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So I'm actually in the tooling section. I'm actually be addressing this. So yeah, but it is a good question. Yeah.
And yeah, more talk on diagrams as code as well.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So that's also going to be addressed later in my slides.
Sit tight, everyone. It'll all be fine.
Yeah. Just calm down, everyone. Jeez. So I think the C4 book actually mentions these as some of the common problems with the system diagrams. So, like sometimes a lot of these, diagrams, they're not sure what sort of abstraction they're trying to use. So they're trying to mix either very detailed kind of abstraction with kind of very kind of broad in one diagram, which makes it very confusing. Obviously, the notation is all over the place. Quite often, there's a lot of things that are ambiguous, like the purpose or relationships between different elements or entities. It's, obviously, I've shown you examples of a lot of generic terms being used without actually any context. So, and it is also very, very common. It's really rare to see a system diagram that actually tells you what technology choices that they've used. So, I guess, this is related to the level of abstraction being mixed. Is quite often there's either too much or too little detail. And then I don't know if anyone's noticed, but like as the diagrams become bigger, there's like you don't know where to start in terms of there's no context or kind of indicator of where you should where the logical starting point is. So I guess you might be wondering, what is C4 then? So, oops, sorry. This is my
wrong presentation.
This is a wrong presentation. This is my sales pitch for North Korean mining equipment. So, if anyone knows any potential buyers for that, just can you please DM me and let me know. I'll give you a fat introduction fee for that. And please don't call ASIO. Okay. So, what is C4 really? So basically, I think most people kind of like to just throw in the Wikipedia kind of definition, but I think kind of that's kind of taking the easy way out. So I've actually given you my own definition as well after kind of reading the book twice and actually going to one of Simon Brown, who is the author. And he did a one-day workshop for our company, which I was privileged and lucky enough to attend as well. So I think after having done all of that, I've come up with my own take as well. So the Wikipedia definition, it's quite compact. It says it's a lean graphical notation technique for modeling the architecture of software systems. It is based on structural decomposition of a system into containers and components. So for me, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know what that means, especially if you haven't actually gone through C4 yourself. So I guess I tried to come up with a more understandable definition. So, so I guess my take is that it's an attempt to address deficiencies with traditional diagramming techniques by incorporating an ubiquitous vocabulary of well-defined notation and components to describe a system using multiple diagrams that represent different levels of abstractions and details. So the big hint with C4 is multiple diagrams, and I guess it represents different levels of abstractions and details. I think these were mentioned as some of the problems earlier. So Simon Brown, he's the inventor. He's also an author, software architect, and also frequent flyer from the UK. And I mentioned frequent flyer because he really does fly all over the globe to give presentations about C4. So yeah, he's got a very plush gig. So, I'd have his smile if I had his plush gig as well.
He's just quite happy looking at that.
Yeah.
You got a question about Akimate as well?
I don't know. I have heard of Akimate, but I don't know when Akimate was invented. But I can tell you that C4 was invented before Docker containers, which is why
we got after from the crowd.
Okay, but I mean, but I don't know how many people that have used Akimate. I would think that C4 is more kind of widely used right now. So that's just my opinion, but I could be wrong on that. So okay, so what C4 is? It is it's not intended to replace your favorite beloved diagrams like EML, right? Everyone loves EML, don't they?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, these sequence diagrams, infrastructure diagrams, deployment diagrams, business process model notations, etc. So I'm guessing everyone who's got kids are teaching EML to their kids, right? No? Are you teaching your kids UML, James?
I've taught them some programming, but UML hasn't come up. Actually, I had Martin Fowler's book, and I was moving house, and I was trying to decide whether I should bother to bring it with me or not. It's a great book, but yeah, the need for UML has been very slim over the last decade.
Yeah,
I thought it was worth learning. I learned it like a decade ago, but
yeah. I think everyone had to learn it. I don't know. I think everyone had to learn EML at one point, and I don't know a single soul that loved EML. So
we got a comment. Archimate's more for TOGAF and business capabilities, and Archimate's only partly on tech.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a good point, Richard. So if I had kids, I'd be teaching my kids EML.
Would you be teaching them C4?
That's why I don't have kids and I'm not married. Yeah. Okay. So C4 in a nutshell, or if you just want to chat in alt.net and not bother listening to my presentation, that's completely okay. If you can just pay attention to this one slide only. So if you can think of Google Maps as a system diagram with different zoom levels, that is literally C4 in a nutshell. So the different zoom levels show you different levels of abstractions and details and so on and so on. So that's basically that's what C4 is. So I only noticed this last night, but that last particular disk diagram, it actually zoomed in on Koreatown, which I thought, oh, that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out that this is not where the sales of my North Korean mining equipment is going on. So please don't email ASIO about this location.
You're offshore now anyway, right? You're safe in Amsterdam. The US can't pull you out.
Well, I think they can. They can pull anyone out anywhere. It's something called rendition. But you might be wondering what the 4 C's and the C4s are. So they basically describe the different abstraction levels. So the first level is context, second being containers, components, and code. And I'll be basically, I don't know if, don't worry if you can't see the details of these diagrams just yet. I'll just go through them, each one in more detail very shortly. Okay, so I mentioned in my definition, there's a ubiquitous vocabulary that C4 uses. So it's trust me, it's really, really simple, except for maybe container and component, which I'll go through now. So a person is basically, it's what you think. It's just any users that are using your system. Software system, again, it's just a software system. So it can either be your system that you're trying to describe, or it can be basically external systems which your system interact with. So container, as I've been repeatedly mentioning, it's not a Docker container, but basically think of container as like a web app, a mobile app, desktop app, basically anything that can be kind of deployed and kind of either executes code or stores data. So I'll keep repeating this definition throughout my presentation. And if you think of component, it's just if you can think of different kind of functional units within the container itself. So like, maybe it's a module or sets of classes or sets of interfaces, etc. So I guess a key characteristics or attribute is that they can't be they're not deployable.
We got a question. What's the C?
No, it's the C. Actually, the C4 means actually. Let me just zoom back. Let me just go back.
And Raymond says that we need Street View as well. C5. That's all good points. So the four C's are the C4 means actually context, containers, components. Oh, they're all C's. There we go.
Yeah. So. And actually, so some of the key features of C4 is these are you think it's very obvious, but they certainly weren't in the diagrams that I showed you before. So all C4 diagrams should have a name of each element should have a name. It actually also has a description of what that particular thing is. And also arrows, all arrows have descriptions too. And it also has a title as well. So this is the first level diagram, or a context, or if you like, a system context diagram. Okay, so I've actually taken these examples from the C4 book as well. So in the book, it basically tries to describe a internet banking system, which is, I think, everyone should be somewhat familiar with what an internet banking system might do. So I just want to quickly, touch upon some of the key points. So the focus here is just on the people and the software systems that your system interact with. So it's not, the focus is not on details such as technology, protocol, and other kind of low-level tech details. So this is, for example, a perfect place for non-technical people to kind of start with, to kind of open up discussions. So I'll just kind of go through some of the things in what's going on in this particular diagram. So in terms of, so you can see, like, obviously it has a title there. So that's a person, because it actually says persons in a little bracket, but also it has a short description here. So it's basically a person is a customer of the bank with personal bank accounts. And you can see it's interacting with this system, but it also has a label kind of describing what sort of interactions that personal banking customer is doing. So obviously, they want to view their account balances and make payments. And we also have like our own, this is the system we're going to try to describe. So obviously it's an internet banking system. It's we know that's a software system. And what does an internet banking system do? So there's a short description here that says allows customers to view information about their bank accounts and make payments. And these two gray boxes are external software systems that your internet banking system is interacting with. So I know like this is an email system, and it actually in the description it says Microsoft. It uses Microsoft Exchange, and obviously I know that I'm using this system to send emails because there's actually a description that says that that's the case. And obviously we know that there's a mainframe banking system that it talks to, and this is actually we know that's a core banking system because that's what it says in the description. And we also know what sort of interaction that it does. So even though it's quite simple, it's quite a simple diagram. You basically know, there's a lot of information that's kind of compacted here in a very neat and organized way. So I hope that you can start seeing the potential of. No, that's for sequence diagrams. Yes. that's why I said C4 diagrams are not intended to replace those other traditional diagrams.
We got a question of the book name.
Yeah, I think it'll be in the resources section. I can't actually remember what it's called. I think it's called
C4.
It's not. It's actually the book's not actually called C4, but. I'll show you what the book is, and I'll also paste all the resources in the meetup comments later on.
Okay. Al says that that it's got different colors as well.
I mean the color coding is something that it's not compulsory, but I think the idea is that if you do. I think you're meant to kind of have a glossary kind of section where you describe what each things are. I don't think I actually have that in part of my slides. Maybe I can show it to you later if I've got an example. But that's something also the tooling that I recommend will actually produce for you as well. So it tries to be very complete in terms of having everything out there for any users or readers of C4 diagrams to be able to decipher what this diagram is. Okay, so you might be, some of the still skeptics out there might be wondering what are the points or what's the point of a diagram so simple as L1. So basically, everything's explicit. So we make absolute no assumptions about anything, and like if you're maybe adding something brand new to your existing environment, this is like a good place to see how it's being added and what it might affect as well. So obviously, I already mentioned about being able to bring in non-technical people for discussion. So I guess it's also a great starting point for identifying who you potentially need to go and talk to. Maybe if you're going to bring in some changes and you want to kind of inform them how it could potentially affect them. So in our example, for example, like if I'm going to make any drastic changes, I need to, for example, make sure that I don't break the email system and then I don't break the core banking system, as an example. Okay, so I'm going to move on to L2 now, I think. So next is the container kind of level diagram. So you can see this used to be the internet banking system, and now we've kind of zoomed in, if you like, and we're starting to see some of the containers that make up that internet banking system. So obviously we have a web application, an SPA part of that. We also have a mobile app, and we can also see there's an API backend as well, and there's also a database that it interacts with. And one thing you've also noticed is now like some of the interactions have expanded, so you can kind of see like how this personal banking customer is interacting with the web application as well as the mobile app as well. And one thing you'll also notice is in the brackets, now we've kind of starting to expand that detail out a bit. So we know, for example, the web application is using Java and Spring MVC. The mobile app is using Xamarin. Oh, you poor souls. And obviously, the API is using Java and Spring MVC. The database here, it just says relational database schema. So I think what Simon was trying to potentially showcase here is sometimes when you draw up all these diagrams, you might not know all the technology that's being used. So you can put in something generic like that, and then you can always come back later to update it once you have more information out there. So, and you can also see, obviously, some of these the interactions here with the external systems has expanded because you can now see it's actually the API application that's sending emails out to the email system as well. So you can see kind of like you're starting to see an expansion of some of the interactions that's going on.
A couple of questions, Francis.
Yeah.
So this one from Al first. So what part of the system would you do an L1 on? Domain focus or interactions?
I think it's mainly like interactions, I think, with other software systems. So I think I mentioned that, the focus is just on how it interacts with the users and how it interacts with the other systems. So that's what the focus is on. You're not trying to expand like anything. Like in our example, we don't want to know how the internals of our internet banking system runs. That is what L2 and L3 and so on are for. L1 is just, okay, this is a black box. What does it talk to? What goes in, what comes out. So we're just focusing on the interactions.
Okay, that's good. And we've got one other one here. So the relationship, does it have a name? Are there different types?
I don't think they I like some of the elements there where there's obviously there's it's either can be a person or software system. So I think relationships, it's kind of open-ended, but the idea is that you kind of the idea is that you need to describe what that relationship is, and then you'll see later on in L3 you're going to see actually also the type of data and maybe type of protocol that's being used to kind of transmit that data and so on and so on. So I think it'll become a little bit clearer once you get down to the L3 level. So some of the key points about L2 is obviously it's become more technical. So I think for developers, architects, and support staff alike, could be quite helpful to that. And then also, now you're starting to see also some of the major technology choices, how they're being used and how they're being communicated, et cetera, which is not something that you saw in some of the diagrams I showcased earlier. And, maybe also, I guess, there might be non-engineering people out there that maybe used to be engineers or they're very highly technical. They might also, perhaps, this type of diagrams may be useful to them as well. Okay, on to the next slide. So I think, okay, so now we at the component level diagram. So now it's starting to get a bit more technical now, a bit more juicy. Perhaps, I think a lot of some of the diagrams that I showcased you earlier, is maybe they're like a mixture of L2 and L3, perhaps more L3 than L2 in some of them. So basically now we're showing the components within a particular container. So in this example, this is the API application, or it should actually say API container. And we can tell that this particular container has 6 different components in it. So one thing to note is, I think you're mentioning that the arrows here now actually have what's the data type. and what sort of protocol that's using. So now, like, we're getting going down into some really deeper level details as well. And you can also see, because there's more components in there, like obviously the diagram's kind of expanding out. So what typically might happen is, you might have to obviously there might be a lot more L3 component diagrams compared to L2 because obviously, we're zooming out. So there's going to be more diagrams that potentially need to be produced. So so some of the key points about L3 diagrams is, so obviously, now we're getting into like a more higher level decomposition of the containers into components, and you can kind of see some of the relationships and dependencies between components, for example. You start to see also potentially more implementation details as well. So I think like the L2 and L3 diagrams are quite especially great for onboarding kind of new technical stuff. It's something that I wish that I had access to when I started off at Freshbooks, which is why I think we've kind of started this initiative within our company to generate some of these diagrams as well. Just one thing to note is that for most companies, like I think on most people, they only kind of maintain L1 and L2 diagrams kind of long term, because as you might appreciate this, but once you get down to L3 and L4 level type diagrams, they become quite difficult to maintain. But the other problem with maintaining L3 and L4 diagrams is you can imagine that level of diagrams, there could be a lot of changes kind of happening all the time. So it's almost like, do you want to be maintaining this in real time? So perhaps when you've got like, onboarding new staff is maybe potential a good time to be generating an up-to-date diagrams for onboarding purposes.
Okay. A couple more questions as well.
Yeah.
So, code for it's asking about specifying cloud.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, not. I think I'm not sure. I think wouldn't something like a deployment diagram be more useful? I'm not sure, but I mean, you can also, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can certainly decide to specify that or not if you think that's important kind of information to kind of convey. So I think a lot of this, I guess there's a lot of, you probably have to read the book, but I think my general feeling is that Simon actually leaves that to the audience. What it's completely up to you to what you decide to include or what you decide not to include.
It's probably the answer for our sixth question as well.
Yeah. You potentially could, but I guess if you're showing more things, it's going to be a bit more cluttered as well. So I guess that's also up to you to kind of decide whether that's useful or not. Okay. Any more questions?
That's it for the moment, I think.
Okay.
Close my window. I'm getting too many birds.
Yeah, I think they're here for the C4 diagram.
Yeah, they're all listening closely. They're very excited.
So,
you do have one more question, actually. Hang on.
Yeah.
So events, where do they go?
Yeah. That's I guess it depends on who's who's consuming those events and what level. I mean, you could possibly do it in L2 and L3 as well, I imagine. It's nothing stopping you from doing both, but then you're going to have to start, I mean, if you decide to do it in L2, obviously you've got to expand it out in L3, and you can imagine it could get a bit messy. Like, I don't know how many, if you've got like thousands of events, then I'm not sure if C4 is a good place to be documenting some of this. You could possibly perhaps try and group them in some sort of like big logical blocks, and then maybe the details of perhaps the constituents could be a separate document. But again, it's like a trade-off, like, the more you want to kind of describe this, I think the more complicated the diagram's going to be. So it's something that you're going to have to kind of play around with it to see what level of abstraction is right for what you're trying to achieve in terms of what you're trying to convey, and also the type of audience that you think are going to be looking at this. Okay. Any more questions?
Just an observation.
Yeah, L4, it's you're on spot there. So with L4, actually, Simon didn't actually invent anything for L4, the code level. He actually recommends using traditional diagrams like either UML or class diagrams. Also, obviously, you don't want to be hand generating this, so he recommends using a tool rather than hand generating this. So I don't know if it's just me or maybe some of you may feel the same, but I feel a bit ripped off here. There's a bit of a switch and bake going on, And I'm actually, next time I see Simon, I'm going to say, maybe he should rename C4 to C3+1 or C3 plus UML or C3 plus U. So, I've had Simon's back so far, but I don't have his back on this particular part. So, okay, let's see. Okay, so some of the key points, I guess, maybe some of you are already familiar with this because you've all like UML experts. But now we're getting into like really marrying kind of the software architecture and code as well. Obviously, please use a tool to generate this. And the other thing is like this is now going to get absolutely massive. So if you have to generate this, try to limit your scope into where you're really trying to focus, and just generate only UML diagrams for that particular part. Okay, so I think, let's see, let me think.
A question from Asif about ER diagrams.
I don't know if ER diagrams belong to C4. I imagine they just, I think, ER diagrams are ER diagrams. As I was saying,
invented by Simon Brown, so not part of C4.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you to forcing ER diagrams into L4, I reckon, at this, at this stage. But I think, as I mentioned before, it was, C4 is certainly not intended to replace all those traditional and beloved diagrams. And I think ER diagrams are also being one of them. Okay, so yeah, finally, now we've gone to the tooling section. So I hope no one was thinking about throwing it by hand.
What do we use the whiteboard for now, Francis?
I don't know. I'm not sure, actually.
Tic-tac-toe.
I think tic-tac-toe. Take lunch orders. I don't know. Drink orders. I'm not sure. Look, I think the whiteboard session will never go away. I should actually include that. As I think it's not probably intended to replace whiteboard sessions as well. That should be included. Your mental note. Okay. So yeah. So meme time. So yeah. For the love of God, please don't use Visio to draw C4 diagrams. Yeah. Please, okay. So sivirmodel.com is basically Simon Brown's website for C4. And these are some of the tools that he's kind of listed. So obviously there's loads of them, and no one has time to evaluate all of these. So basically, I didn't actually do the evaluation. One of my colleagues did. So, and you can see we've only picked 4. Visio, unfriendly now. I think Draw.io being, I think now it's called Diagramsnet. Plant UML, which is, I think, a fairly popular I think, diagram modeling tool, and structurizer is another tool as well. And so my recommendation is actually, if you can, use structurizer. And the reason being is it's actually built by the author of C4, Simon Brown. So you're going to think I'm a Simon Brown fanboy, but I'm not. but I think the main advantage of this tool is, it's the only probably tool that's built from the ground up with C4 in mind. So it's obviously using it's doing the modeling as code. I think I got that wrong. So basically, it's diagram as code or model as code kind of concept. So everything's kind of written in kind of DSL type language. So as this diagrams evolve, you get a history of what's being changed. So it can almost be like an ADI in that sense. And lastly, it's free and recently open source. So, why pay money for Visio and all those other tools when you can do this for free, right? Okay. So, okay. Oops, I think I don't know how that's going in. So these are some of the resources. So I can certainly copy and paste them. So so C4, obviously the C4 website. I don't know. Right. Yeah. So that's the actual book, Visualizing Software Architecture. So I don't know, for those who don't know what Lean Pub is, no, it's not a pub where they only allow skinny people in. And that would be a really bad business model. They'll go broke really soon. But it's basically an independent online bookstore for technical books. Is a pro tip here. So if you're interested in buying a book, there's in small print, it'll actually show you whether it's 100% completed, or maybe it's 90% completed, or what. But it also shows you the date of when it was last updated. So make a good judgment call on whether you think this book's going to be finished or not. So so don't go and buy everything. So I made the mistake of buying a book that was only like 50% completed, and it hasn't been updated in a few years. and Lean Pub wouldn't refund me on what I paid for the book. So I can guarantee. I can safely say that the C4 book is actually 100% complete. So so that's one book. If you do want to buy, you don't have to worry about whether it's completed or not. So obviously, I mentioned it was a open source. So these are the kind of links for the GitHub, I guess, page, and also the actual tool pages here. And there's also a cheat sheet here that's kind of quite handy. So in fact, if you've just been chatting away and not paying attention to any of my presentation, that's cool. But if you want to remember what I've said, then this is a good handy site to go to.
The cheat sheet.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me see if I can. How are you doing for time? Oh gosh, it's almost an hour.
We're about 10 minutes left, Francis.
Okay.
We've had mainly questions where, just for the resources, if you stick those in the meetup afterwards, that's probably the way to go.
Okay. Yeah. So so demo time. I'm going to try and do a demo in 5 minutes. You will see what.
You go a little bit longer. We started maybe 5 minutes in. So
that's okay. So what could be possibly going on? Okay, so I think the demo I'm going to do is maybe this is why you don't do diagrams by hand. That's not my handwriting, but it might as well be. So basically, just to give you a quick background, we're trying to add a payroll system to our platform, and this is the context level diagram we actually came up with in actually one of Simon's workshop. So just to go give you quickly, we have a customer, we have our business service, which is, think of it as our core systems, and this is the external payroll provider. And if you can see, that payroll system it's expanded, so it's really simple. we have like a UI, a backend, and a database. So it's one of the most simple, as it can get. So I'll quickly okay, let me quickly. People wakes up. Okay, so okay, because we don't have time to do this, I'm gonna just hang up. It's all a bit haphazardly organized. Apologies for that. Okay, so cool. So let me. Can you see my screen now? Maybe not.
Oh, it came and it went.
Yeah. Not sure. Okay, hang on.
So there's some inspection happening on the side as well.
Yeah. So I think so. So can you see you guys can see this? Oh yeah. Okay, so this is a structurizer. So I'm actually, this is the actual C4 diagrams that is generated. So, that's the context level diagram, and that's the container level. And I'll just quickly show you how easy it is to generate this. So, okay, come on. Yeah, wait. Okay, okay, so here's my code.
I knew we'd get to some code eventually. Here we are.
Yeah, here we go. Hang on, I can only click on. Yeah, I just need to be able to click on the. I can't. Wait, how do I get the top? Okay, it's just disaster. Can't believe I'm being let down by.
Window manager.
Yeah, I don't know. Windows. Oh, here we go. I don't want to minimize this, so I zoom in. Oh, here we go. Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is the DSL that's generated.
So can you make it a bit bigger, maybe?
Bigger? Yeah. Hang on. Okay. How do I zoom
if it's
in?
easy. Otherwise, I can just read it. So if you can't,
maybe must be a way.
No worry. Don't worry. If it's hard.
Why doesn't it zoom in? Hang on. Yeah, sorry, my I don't know. Okay, so you can't see it still, I think.
It's all right if I make it full screen.
Does anyone know what the zoom shortcut key is for pie chart?
Pie chart.
Yeah. Okay, so I can try and describe it to you. So obviously, there's basically you're just describing the model, and on the first level, I'm describing, okay, there's a user, we have a payroll system, we have a business service, email service, and the external payroll provider, and these are all the elements that you see on the top level, the L1 diagrams, and you're basically saying a user is a person. That's a title that you've seen, and it's a description, and that's it. That's all you need to do to actually describe the element of element in the L1 level, and then on here you're basically describing like if you can remember the arrow part. So I'm basically describing all the flows. So a user going to a payroll system is basically that's a manage, run payroll. So that's a description here. So I think the DSL is pretty simple, and to do basically a level 2 diagram. So we're basically zooming on the payroll system. So you're basically doing the same type of definitions here, but the difference is now we describe, we're prescribing it as a container, basically a title.
We got some comments for you on the play chart.
Okay. Yeah, and it should be.
No good. There we go. Command plus. Oh, that's
it's not working. I'm doing command.
Yeah. No, it just doesn't want to zoom.
It just doesn't want to zoom. I'm sorry.
It's not a very well-behaved Mac application.
No, I think my keyboard is. I need a new keyboard. Hang on, I'm gonna just one last turn it on and off again. So.
Yeah, it sounds like people having trouble reading it.
Yeah. My apologies for that. But I think basically, like it's. I guess just to summarize, it's a pretty. There are examples on the Structurizer website, but the idea is that it's pretty self-explanatory. So it's basically, you're just describing whether it's a person or software system. You're giving it a title. You're giving the description. Basically things that you're seeing on the diagram. You're just describing it as a model. And I think and basically. It's following a nested model as well. So basically, as you zoom in, like basically, I'm just nesting the next level elements. So it's a container that I'm kind of describing here, and then if I'm doing the components, I'll probably be nesting the component definition is here. Yeah. So I think we probably can kill that awful demo.
There's a playground as well. I stuck a comment in, like a JS playground where you can edit stuff, and it generates it on the fly, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I kind of want to show you, actually, if I can, is so I'm actually. Okay. I'm actually running this as a Docker container. So I'm gonna.
Now this one, Command plus should work, Francis.
Yeah. Okay, this okay. So this, I just want to show you. Basically, I'm running it as a Docker container, and I basically need to specify where my DSL kind of definition sits, but also I also need to specify just where the structurizer files are located. I can also post this as well on the comments, because this can be quite tricky to get it running. Okay, and
the container from Simon's.
Yeah. You can grab the container. There's actually the first he actually mentions two ways. So you can either do like a Java jar file, or you can run the container. I tried using the Java way, and I just couldn't get it running. So I'm using the Docker way. Yeah.
Not everyone's got a Java set up these days.
Yeah. Why would you? But okay, and I don't know if I've got anything else to kind of show in the short time.
We're at the end of the time. So does anyone have any questions for Francis here? We all questioned out as we went, maybe.
Yeah, no.
Plenty of questions earlier, so that's all good.
That's all good. Yeah, thanks for listening.
And you got it. I've got questions for the crowd afterwards, but you got a few people saying that you've done a good job, which I totally agree. That was really enjoyable and informative, Francis. Thank you.
Well, Richard would, but I'm doing Richard's job. Yeah.
And has Richard got anything? No heckles. It's all thanks. You must have done a good job.
Yeah. I think it's going to cost me a fortune, obviously. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
All right, wow. And Richard's obviously not well because he hasn't got anything to make. Hang on, we got one question from Raven. Just stick it in its own repo.
That is up to you. Obviously, I mean, it's up to you whether you want to put it alongside code or like like a central repository just dedicated for C4. So obviously, in my particular example, I have my DSL stored with the actual code itself, but the diagrams that it generated, I think, will go to a central repository, like a central website where there's all these other C4 diagrams of other systems. So that would be a good place for like external users, including the non-technical people that I mentioned, to go and it's a central place for all your C4 diagrams. And the idea is that you're not just looking at C4 diagrams of one system. You'll be looking at C4 diagrams of other systems to try and build a picture of how all your different disparate systems interact with each other.
So also, yes, you got a request for the links. So
yeah.
Definitely pop in the meetup content, and a question around Miro as well. You've come across it.
I haven't used it. I mean, look, I know I've been pushing Structurizer, but that's not to say that you don't have to follow my recommendation. There are other tools that you can use, including Visio. But I mean, but the thing is, if you have to use other tools, my recommendation is go for some sort of modeling based tool rather than just like strictly kind of like visual only or drawing only tools as well, because you're going to lose all this information. And the other thing people have to kind of consider is you're going to be maintaining this throughout the lifetime of your employment. so something to consider as well. So like what would be easier to maintain it, just adding a couple of lines of DSL definitions, or having to go through the pain of drawing this and having to organize all that stuff. I think let a tool do it if you can. But
you can't argue about the layout as well. You can't spend hours lining up your boxes and the lines to make sure they're straight and not got funny wiggles in them because you haven't got them quite straight from pressing the shift key or whatever else, right?
Yeah. And one thing I actually haven't showed is obviously my diagram that I showed you. It was just I'm using the auto layout options, but you can actually manually also line up yourself and save it, and it will actually save those settings in a JSON file. So
so you can do it after all. There you go.
You can do it after all. I didn't want to mention it, but that is also possible within Structurizer.
So, all right, one last comment, and then we got collaboration visual tools working well from Asif, and yes, MD book.
Yeah, I mean, it might be all these like integrations out there that I'm not aware of. So, for example, I know like there's a Visual Studio Code integration. That depends, because that
depends whether you're generating your code from your
but that also I mean, like that depends on whether like how aligned like the UML diagram I mean, there should be some sort of alignment, but
the problem with UML diagrams, right? They're too much work to maintain on any significant amount of the system. So,
and the other thing is,
in which case then they're kind of just all over the place because there's too much in them anyway. Maybe Francis loves UML diagrams more.
Me and my imaginary kids, but I guess I think Plant UML is, I would say, like quite another popular, I guess, alternative to Structurizer, maybe even more popular. But just going back to the UML diagrams, I guess, is that not a lot of people understand UML diagrams. So you can imagine our generation, the ones that actually spent the time actually trying to understand UML diagrams, don't understand UML diagrams. So I can't imagine the younger generation. This is maybe bias creeping in, but good luck with that.
All right. Well, we probably have to wrap it up because it's 8:10. So I've got some questions for the audience to win their JetSbrains licenses. So this one is a slightly tricky question. So how many diagram types were defined by Simon Brown in C4? So the diagrams that he made up. He answers 3. Asif is the winner. All right. Pop in your email address and meetup message to me, and I will send the license to you. It looks like we had quite a few people, but Asif was the first on that one. So congratulations. So one of the licenses is yours.
Yeah.
And the other question which I had is probably pretty easy now since we've all been talking about it a lot. All right, I'll just grab your email now. Sorry. All right. And the other question is, so what tool does Francis recommend to make C4 diagrams?
Don't say Visio.
Yeah, so his recommendation, take it or leave it. There you go. That was an easy one. All right. So this was a speed test. I should have made up harder questions for you. When I wrote that question down, we didn't talk about it so much. There we go. Anyway, Al's the winner there on the structurizer. I think he's got the spelling's not quite right, but I think we're still accepting that, right, Francis?
Yeah, I think this. Well, look. I think you have to forgive them on the spelling. Like if you know what they're talking about, I think you should give it to them.
It's probably still working, Google. I expect to give you the right answer. All right, so Al, send me through your email. You don't need to pop it in the chat. Just send it as a meetup message, and I'll send it through to you later. The license.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is first of all for such a good talk.
Thank you.
You've kicked off the year very well with our first, hand talk and hands-on diagramming. we had the hands-on coding, but this is the first presentation of the year. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm actually sorry that I couldn't do a better demo. I guess we kind of ran out of time. Just before I go, I think I mentioned that I've managed to secure like a 3-month trial for anyone who's interested in using our product. So our product is an invoicing and an accounting kind of platform. So if anyone's interested, you can either email me or you can email Anna Popiuk at freshbooks.com. I'll also put these details in the comment as well after the chat. So yeah, just feel free to, it doesn't cost you anything to just try us out. So yeah, if anyone's interested, give us a shout.
Sounds good. And also, Francis volunteered to give the talk. So if anyone else has got something fun they want to talk about, something they're interested in or been learning recently, then drop me a meetup message or Twitter or whatever system you can find. You should be able to get in touch, and we can set something up for one of the future meetups next month. So we've got talks lined up, and it's going to be on some cool hands-on coding on domain-driven design and that sort of stuff.
Oh, awesome. I'll be up for that.
Yeah, check out the site for that one. Just double check what details. It's by Chris. Let me see. So we called it Hacking on Contextive, the Living Domain Language Documentation Tool. So by Chris Simon, and all the details are there on the site for next month. But we don't have a speaker for the month after. So if at this point, we're pretty organized to already have a speaker for next month. That's unusual. So yes, the month after that is free. That would be April. So let me know if you'd like to give a talk or do some sort of hands-on coding or whatever takes your fancy. And something interactive is the best, of course. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you next month.
Yeah, have a good evening, everyone. Thanks again for coming.
And wherever you are in the world, good night.